Chapter 3, The Victim. Investigating the life of the Florence 11's victim, Wayman Small, I began with a blank slate. To defend Richard Compton against the charge of murdering Small, I had only needed to know how to portray Small as a violent predator. Now I wanted to know about the person whose death became the cause for war between the state of Arizona and the Aryan Brotherhood. I learned of Small's life and crimes through reading old court records in cold storage at the Maricopa County Clerks of Courts Annex from the first 1977 first-degree murder case that sent him back to Arizona State Prison for the last time. That file revealed the details of Small's life. It also told me I would learn a lot more by talking with Phoenix Police Detective Ron Quaife, who along with his partner, Detective Harry Jennings, had apprehended Small. Quaife and Jennings were the lead investigators on another first-degree murder case in which I had defended James Fisher, a sociopathic alcoholic. Fisher's and Small's crimes had eerie similarities. Both Fisher and Small had bludgeoned elderly women with hammers, killing them behind closed doors of small downtown Phoenix apartments and stealing trivial sums of money, $500 and $600, money they could have easily taken from their victims with 1 ounce of force. Both cases were easy to solve and prosecute. Both merited the death penalty. Small had been in and out of mental and penal institutions his entire life, so much so that if the state of Alabama in 1977 had extradited him from Arizona to serve an overdue term of imprisonment for his escape 11 years earlier, Quaife and Jennings never would have been called late at night on April 13, 1977 to investigate Grace Asher's murder. Like Farmer's captor, Ron Quaife exemplifies the highest ideals and achievements of law enforcement. I learned his life story in 1997 during a leisurely 3-hour visit to his North Phoenix home, where he lived in retirement with his wife. In 1963, Quaife, his wife, and 5 children moved to the Southwest after selling their inheritance of Illinois land for barely enough money to make a down payment on a home in Phoenix. Police work became Quaife's career by default when the Phoenix Police Department became the first prospective employer to call him back for an interview. The work suited his personality and talent. By 1977, Quaife had moved up the ranks from beat cop to detective in the Phoenix Police Department's Homicide Bureau. Quaife and his longtime partner, Harry Jennings, put a quick end to Wayman Small's first and only legal interlude of adult life on the streets. From the age of 8 to 32, Small spent only 3 weeks as a free man. Every other day, this average-sized, ebony-colored son of grinding Alabama rural poverty was either in state custody or an escaped fugitive. Detectives Quaife and Jennings were called to the scene of Grace Asher's murder, an apartment in the heart of the city near the campus of Phoenix College. Flipping through Asher's checkbook, Quaife and Jennings learned that the nearly blind woman had written a check to have her carpets cleaned the day after her death. This clue led Quaife and Jennings straight to Wayman Small, an ex-convict and newly employed carpet cleaner randomly assigned to the Asher job. Small's employer described the cleaner's vehicle as a blue 1968 Chevy Impala. Quaife and Jennings posted a lookout for the vehicle, which turned out to be stolen, to stop and detain Small upon suspicion of murder and car theft. Small fled when a patrol car spotted the Chevrolet. Quaife and Jennings followed the course of the chase and captured on their radio. They reached the Canterbury apartments as Small was being handcuffed. He was taken to Phoenix Police Headquarters at 7th Avenue in Washington, where he made an odd confession. Yes, he had killed the elderly lady, but black hands made him do it. Quaife's doleful, bloodhounded-like expression and calm, unassuming Midwestern demeanor hid his feelings of revulsion as Small spun his fanciful tale. "Okay, tell me more about this Mr. Blackhands," became Quaife's broken record, reframed during the suspect's long-winded confession. The Blackhands cult, Small said, had initiated him in a desert mountain mine shaft outside Globe, Arizona. Eventually, according to Small, the cult threatened to kill his 8-year-old son unless Small killed Asher. With Small's admission of murder, Quaife had heard all he needed and charged Small with the murder of Grace Asher. Small's best defense, Quaife told the Maricopa County prosecutor, would be insanity. Maricopa County paid for Wayman Small's criminal defense. Small was fortunate enough to have his defense assigned to Bruce Billiard, a wheelchair-bound, well-known, and well-regarded former prosecutor with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. He had just started a private practice and kept his office open by taking indigent defense work. Giller's first motion filed in Small's behalf sought an examination of his mental competency to stand trial. Prosecutor Jim Braden requested the judge, Sandra Day O'Connor, appoint Dr. Michael Clearly, longtime head psychiatrist at Arizona State Hospital, as one of the psychiatrists to undertake Small's evaluation. Dr. Clearly knew Small well. He was a repeat customer at the Maximum Security Division, where he had been examined many times between 1970 and 1977. Small's dog-eared, massive file told a sorry tale. Born June 9, 1945 in Cedar Bluff, Alabama, Small thought he had 4 or 5 living brothers and sisters. His father deserted the family when they lived in Columbus, Ohio. Small was sent to a children's home when at age 9 his mother gave up on him. His schooling ended at 7th grade. He logged 4 separate juvenile detentions between the ages of 12 and 15. His adult FBI rap sheet began in 1961 at age 15 with his conviction for armed robbery and sentencing to the Georgia Industrial Institution. It is doubtful whether Small ever knew from the day of his birth to his death in Arizona State Prison a single day of normal life. Small spent very few days outside institutional control after age 9. He certainly spent every day from April 1968 to March 1977 either in the Maricopa or Gila County jails, the Arizona State Prison, or the Arizona State Hospital, except for his brief escape from the Gila County Jail. Small's first period of institutionalization lasted 6 months at the Juvenile Diagnostic Center in Columbus, Ohio, where there he threatened to hang himself. Between the ages of 9 and 14, Small bounced back and forth between the streets, foster care, and Ohio School for Boys at least 3 times, often running away from psychiatric wards. Georgia convicted Small of armed robbery and sent him to prison for 12 to 15 years, but again he escaped. Small spent some of his time aimlessly wandering with his dad from Houston to Phoenix, where he was suspected of burglary and rape, and where he definitely fathered a child. This spree ended in 1963 in Columbus, Ohio, with his arrest for stealing shirts. He didn't give himself up easily. Small struck out violently at the policeman attempting to arrest him and jumped off a high bridge into a river. The psychiatrist pegged this as not a suicidal gesture, but an attempt to escape arrest. Stealing shirts, however, wasn't the reason for his next 4 years of confinement in Ohio's mental hospitals. He had cut a girl with a knife, sodomized a young boy, and placed a shotgun at the throat of another victim and pulled the trigger, but the gun did not fire. After Small won a transfer from prison back to the Columbus hospital, he escaped, staged an armed robbery, and shot at an Ohio highway patrolman to avoid his arrest. This earned Small 3 more years at Lima. The authorities blew it again and released Small to the less secure confines of Columbus State Hospital. Within 3 weeks, he escaped again on August 27, 1967. Small was always cagey in giving his history, so educated conjecture leads to the conclusion that a documented 1967 shotgun armed robbery in Indiana and confinement to a state hospital in Indianapolis fit into the short but otherwise unaccounted for time frame after the escape in Ohio. Small followed his mother's path to Arizona, where yet again he committed an armed robbery, got arrested, escaped from Gila County Jail, and was recaptured after taking a shot at the Gila County Sheriff. Small may have come to Arizona to see his son, Raymond, the issue of his procreative union with Laura Street in February 1963. Small might well have repeated his Ohio, Georgia, and Indiana scenarios of confinement, escape, confinement if Arizona had had an adequate hospital for the criminally insane. After his escapades in Globe, Arizona, Gila County Superior Court Judge Robert McGee requested that psychiatrist Mayor Tuchler assess Small's mental condition. Tuchler's report spelled out the system's deficiencies in order to assure that Small went to prison this time. Lima State Hospital is a maximum security institution for the criminally insane. The various state hospitals in Ohio transfer their unmanageable and violent patients to this institution for the criminally insane. Arizona has no such institution. The maximum security ward at Arizona State Hospital is quite inadequate to control behavior of such potential violence of which this subject is capable. He is quite devoid of any inner controls and most ingenious in maneuvering escapes. The only safe security for Wayman Small is a penal institution rather than in a mental hospital. Small returned to Arizona State Prison and was there until July 13, 1976, when the old Georgia escape charges caught up with him. He was extradited to Georgia, where he acted as his own lawyer and prepared a successful writ of habeas corpus challenging the legality of the guilty plea that sent him to prison at age 15. Relieved to be rid of him, Georgia released him with a bus ticket to Arizona on January 29, 1977. For the first time in his adult life, at age 31, Small had no holds, paroles, or warrants over his head. Thus began his last foray outside institutional walls, destined to only last 3 months. After reviewing Smalls' files, Dr. Clearly dictated his last report on him. Describing events on the evening of Grace Asher's murder, when he returned to the victim's house, he relates an experience in which the victim reportedly came up behind him, called him a bad name, and attacked him with a claw hammer or knife, one weapon in each hand. He then moves from an apparently factual account to the realm of fantasy, fiction, or fabrication. The victim changed into a man who had tried to kill him when he was 5 years old, a one-legged man who tried to throw him into a cesspool. He saw a series of clear pictures, then disarmed and fought the attacker, backhanding the hammer and slapping at the knife. He heard a weird chanting in the background, and the man, a brown-skinned brother with medium afro and burns on his face, spoke to Small, telling him he moved fast. In addition, the small dog of the victim assumed the proportions of a huge German shepherd. On leaving the house, he could not recall how he got out, but then realized that Miss Asher was dead. Compared with the tale Small later told at his trial for Asher's murder, the jurors who convicted him could easily have said to Psychiatrist Clearly, "Doc, that was nothing." And though they would hear an even wilder tale, the jury's verdict would agree with Dr. Clearly's diagnosis: no mental disorder. Armed with Dr. Clearly's report, Judge O'Connor found Small competent and sane on July 6, 1977. Disappointed but not dissuaded, Small tried again. Brazenly, he wrote a letter in his careful, effeminate, nearly perfect handwriting, beseeching Judge O'Connor to spend some quality time alone with him. Trial judges routinely receive handwritten entreaties from defendants, victims, and their families and friends, seeking special favors or the opportunity to tell the judge the whole story so that justice can really be done. Judges ignore the pleas and instruct their clerks to dutifully file the letters in the court's official case file in order to preserve a complete record. Small's letter deserves recognition as a classic of the genre. Sickly sweet, transparently manipulative, with oddities of English usage, syntax, and word choice that betray the con man's warped mindset in spite of his charade of rationality. Read Wayman Gene Small, CR 97388. Dear Judge O'Connor, will you please permit me, off the record, informal and irregular confidential conference with you? I am hoping that what I have to communicate to you will influence you in your dealing and understanding me in my case. Cause number supra. I promise not unnecessarily waste your time, and my behavior will be that of a gentleman and above reproach. However, if you feel for any reason that I may constitute a security exposure to loss or harm in any way, then by all means take whatever steps you deem necessary so that we may have a few hours alone, so that you and I can sit down and talk about what I would like to talk to you about. Thank you in advance for your time and any consideration you may give my request as stated above. I am sincerely yours, Wayman G. Small. Prosecutors and public defenders have a special name for murder trials like Small's, in which the evidence of guilt is so great, the crime is so horrible, and the defendant so unsavory that the outcome is never in doubt, the slow form guilty plea. The only matter in doubt, would Small receive the death penalty? Prosecutor James Braden wasted no time convincing the jury of the horror of Small's crime. He began with Dr. Jarvis's autopsy. Before the second witness took the stand, the jury knew that a defenseless, nearly blind, 70-year-old lady had been viciously attacked with a hammer and knife and strangled with an electric cord. Dr. Jarvis's autopsy report described atrocious stab wounds and hammer blows to the chest, neck, and head, with the cord ligature double wrapped and tied around the neck in a square knot. Even Jarvis's sober technical descriptions conveyed Small's brutality. Cause of death: head injury, stab wounds, neck and chest, strangulation by ligature. Manner of death: homicide. Narrative: summary of circumstances surrounding death: found, beaten and stabbed. House ransacked. Dog killed. Found dead April 13, 1977, 9:15 p.m.